Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a really big question. How do we even begin to navigate our increasingly chaotic world? We're going to be breaking down a super powerful framework from Jonathan M. Kayomba's Sovereignty and Hygiene. Let's just start with that feeling. You know the one I'm talking about, right? That sense that the modern world is a constant battlefield for our focus, our time, and even our ability to think clearly. If you feel that way, trust me, you are definitely not alone. At the very heart of that feeling is this constant conflict between signal, that's the clear, meaningful information we actually need, and noise, all the overwhelming static that just drowns it out. The framework we're exploring today offers a really powerful lens to tell the difference, and maybe, just maybe, reclaim a little bit of sanity. So the core diagnosis here is that our society is in a full-blown crisis of noise. And the main battlefield? Well, it's communication itself. The very thing that's supposed to be connecting us. You know, we used to talk about echo chambers, right? The idea that we only listen to people who agree with us. Well, some of the recent research suggests it's actually much worse than that. Online debate has kind of devolved into what you could call trench warfare. We're not avoiding opposing views anymore. We're actively seeking them out, but only to dig our own ideological trenches even deeper. So what actually wins debates online? A Cornell University study dug into this, and the results? They're pretty revealing. The winners weren't decided by logic or, the quality of their arguments. What really mattered was social status, their position in the network. And yep, you guessed it, follower count. The actual signal is being completely drowned out by the noise of who's shouting the loudest. So how does all this external noise get inside our heads? Well, it turns out this isn't just a metaphor. On a neurological level, this environment is literally rewiring our brains. And it all starts with a chemical you've definitely heard of, dopamine. It's the brain's fundamental driver for motivation and learning. It's that little internal voice that says, hey, that was good, do it again. But here's the crucial distinction this model makes. There's what you might call good dopamine, the slow burn fuel for long-term goals, like studying for a test or training for a marathon. And then there's bad dopamine, which is what happens when our reward system gets hijacked by those cheap, instant hits from notifications and social media, the stuff that drives compulsive behavior. So what's the neurological cost of that constant stream of digital noise? Well, it completely overworks our prefrontal cortex. That's kind of like the brain's CEO. The part in charge of impulse control. And when the CEO gets tired, our self-control weakens, which makes us really vulnerable to that endless scroll. This internal breakdown also changes how we listen. Neurologically, there's a huge difference between active listening, where your brain is firing on all cylinders trying to understand, and fake listening, just nodding along while processing absolutely nothing. It shows almost no brain activity. And as the source argues, it's actually worse than silence, because it actively wastes the signal. But this isn't just an internal, personal problem. The same patterns of noise and dysfunction are baked right into our economic and social systems. All right, let's start with a number that is truly staggering. By 2048, an estimated $124 trillion will be transferred between generations, and that's just in the US. I mean, just think about that for a second. It's an almost unimaginable amount of capital and motion. And yet, at the exact same time, young adults are facing the highest rates of homelessness. You can see here from data in Australia, the rate for 19 to 24-year-olds is just dramatically higher than for the general population. So how can both of these things be true at once? Well, this massive disconnect leads to a really core idea in this framework. What if we stopped treating wealth as a sentimental goal, something tied to status and just buying things, and started seeing it as functional circuitry? Like a tool to build things, to solve problems, to enable potential. This way of thinking actually has a pretty interesting real-world parallel in the FIRE movement. People in this community practice really aggressive saving, but not to buy more stuff. The goal is to liberate their time and escape what's called the hedonic treadmill, that endless cycle of always wanting more. They basically treat money as a tool to buy their own freedom. So when you put all the pieces together, housing that's dependent on family wealth, youth income that's about half of the next bracket up, it becomes pretty clear. The traditional circuits to success are, for a lot of people, just broken. Is it any wonder so many are turning to new platforms like TikTok to try and find their own path to upward mobility? Okay, so we're faced with a hijacked brain and broken social circuits. How in the world do we find clarity? Where do we even begin to navigate all this noise? Now, this approach doesn't offer some rigid, one-size-fits-all solution. It's not a magic pill. Instead, you should think of it as a conceptual model, like a compass. It's a set of guiding principles to help us restore our own personal discipline and function in the face of all this modern chaos. One of its key principles is this new rule for the digital age. Respect is bandwidth discipline. It's all about consciously treating attention as the most valuable resource we have, both our own attention and the attention we demand from other people. And this translates into a really practical tool, the pre-share filter. Before you post or message or share anything, just ask yourself 3 simple questions. 1, is this relevant? 2, is it useful? And 3, and this is the big one, why should the person on the other end give you their limited time and attention? It's like a personal filter to stop yourself from contributing to the noise. This way of thinking also asks us to completely redefine community. It argues we should stop focusing on quantitative density, which is just cramming more people into a space, like a crowded subway car. The real goal is qualitative density, the quality of the connections and the shared purpose that actually makes us feel like we belong. And that's really the ultimate goal here. This entire framework is designed to be empowering. It takes these huge, complex, systemic problems from neuroscience all the way to economics, and it translates them into an actionable personal philosophy that you can actually use every single day. At the end of the day, it all boils down to reclaiming a sense of control, of sovereignty over the things we can actually influence, which leaves us with one final powerful question to think about. In this age of noise, what are you truly sovereign over? That's the starting point.